The White House just fired thousands of federal workers in the middle of a government shutdown, a move unions are calling illegal. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this matters for every service you rely on, from food safety to public health, and what happens next. On Friday, October 11, 2025, the Trump administration began laying off federal employees across multiple agencies. This happened during a government shutdown now stretching into its third week. Russell Vought, director of the White House Office of Management and Budget, announced on social media that RIFs have begun. RIF stands for Reduction in Force, the government's formal procedure for letting employees go. Court documents reveal the scale. Over 4,000 federal workers received termination notices in a single day. Why does this matter to you? These aren't abstract bureaucrats. They're the people who inspect your food, process disaster relief, secure the border, and keep the IRS running. When they're gone, those services stop. Let's look at the numbers filed with the federal court. The Department of Commerce lost about 315 employees. The Department of Education saw 466 workers receive RIF notices. The Department of Energy cut 187 positions. Health and Human Services, the agency overseeing Medicare, Medicaid, the CDC, and FDA, fired between 100 and 1,200 employees. Housing and Urban Development terminated 442 workers. Homeland Security, which includes border security and emergency management, let go 176 employees. And Treasury, which houses the IRS, fired 1,146 people. That's over 4,000 families suddenly without income. Over 4,000 positions that kept government services running. The timing raises a critical question. Can the administration legally fire people during a shutdown? Unions say no. Everett Kelly, national president of the American Federation of Government Employees, called the move disgraceful and illegal. According to Kelly, the Trump administration used the government shutdown as an excuse to illegally fire thousands of workers who provide critical services to communities across the country. His union represents 800,000 federal and D.C. government workers. Lee Saunders, president of AFSCME, went further. These mass firings are illegal and will have devastating effects on the services millions of Americans rely on every day. He pointed to food inspectors and public safety workers as examples. Federal employees should not be bargaining chips in this administration's political games, Saunders added. The AFL-CIO, America's largest labor federation, responded directly to Vaught's announcement. America's unions will see you in court. They're not bluffing. Last week, two major unions, AFGE and AFSCME, filed for a temporary restraining order to block any reductions in force during the shutdown. On Friday, right after Vaught's post, they filed an emergency motion asking a judge to stop the layoffs immediately. The legal argument hinges on the Anti-Deficiency Act and shutdown rules. According to a September 30th report by the Center for American Progress, shutdowns limit the administration's ability to permanently fire employees. The report cited Office of Management and Budget guidance, stating that permanent layoffs must be initiated before a shutdown begins. The distinction matters. Shutdown furloughs happen when Congress hasn't approved funding. Administrative furloughs are the formal procedures agencies use to permanently let staff go, including RIFs. A federal judge already ordered the Trump administration to provide specifics about layoff plans by Friday, October 10th. That order came on October 7th, 3 days before the layoffs actually started. So, what's driving this shutdown in the first place? Congressional Democrats have refused to vote for the Republican spending bill unless it includes health care protections. Specifically, Democrats want premium tax credits for Affordable Care Act health plans extended beyond their December 31, 2025 expiration. They're also demanding safeguards against Trump's rescissions, his cancellations of funding Congress already approved. Democrats want restored funding for public media and a reversal of Medicaid cuts affecting poor and disabled Americans. The Senate has held 7 unsuccessful votes on competing spending bills. Because Senate rules require 60 votes to advance legislation, Republicans need Democratic support. They don't have it. Republican leaders put the Senate in recess until Tuesday, October 15th, guaranteeing the shutdown continues through the weekend. Here's where it gets personal for millions of Americans. Federal employees received only a partial paycheck on Friday. That check covered the final days of September, but not the beginning of October, since appropriations lapsed on October 1st. If the government doesn't reopen by Wednesday, October 16th, U.S. military personnel will miss their next paycheck entirely. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson blamed Senate Democrats. This is the last paycheck that 700,000 federal workers will see until Washington Democrats decide to do their job and reopen the government. He added that American service members, many of whom live paycheck to paycheck, are going to miss a full paycheck if Democrats don't end the shutdown by Monday. A group of House Democrats sent Johnson a letter asking him to allow a vote on legislation ensuring troops get paid during shutdowns. Johnson refused and kept the House out of session throughout the shutdown. Let's pause for a counter-argument. Republicans argue they already passed a funding bill in the House on a near-party line vote. Senate Republican leader John Thune said the White House for 10 days laid off doing anything in hopes that enough Senate Democrats would come to their senses and do the right thing and fund the government. From this view, Democrats are holding government funding hostage over health care policy unrelated to basic operations. Fair point, except for 3 things. First, extending ACA tax credits isn't unrelated. Millions of Americans will lose health coverage if those credits expire in 2.5 months. Second, Democrats are asking to preserve funding Congress already approved. Trump's rescissions unilaterally canceled that money. Third, Medicaid cuts directly affect whether vulnerable Americans can see a doctor. These aren't ornaments. They're health care and budget oversight. Republicans could negotiate. They've chosen not to. And here's the deeper values question. Is firing thousands of workers during a shutdown, when they can't be replaced and services collapse, a responsible way to govern? Max Stier, president of the Nonprofit Partnership for Public Service, put it plainly, "It is wrong to make federal employees suffer because our leaders in Congress and the White House have failed to keep our government open and operational." He continued, "Our air traffic controllers, VA nurses, smoke jumpers, and food inspectors are not responsible for this government shutdown, and they shouldn't bear the financial burden created by the failures of our elected officials." Then Stier noted the irony. Members of Congress and senior White House leaders are continuing to be paid. The people who caused the crisis still get paychecks. The people who keep the country running don't. That's not just unfair. It's a failure of basic governance. Democrats have consistently argued that government should work for people, that public services matter, that workers deserve dignity, and that health care is a right, not a privilege. This shutdown tests those values in real time. When you fire food inspectors, food safety suffers. When you fire Treasury employees, tax refunds slow down and fraud goes unchecked. When you fire HHS workers, public health responses weaken. These aren't abstractions. They're the infrastructure of daily American life. So what happens next? The Senate returns Tuesday, October 15th. Until then, no votes, no negotiations, no resolution. The union's emergency motion for a temporary restraining order will move through federal court, possibly as soon as next week. If a judge grants the order, the administration would have to pause or reverse the layoffs while the case proceeds. If the judge denies it, the firings stand, and the unions pursue a full legal challenge. Either way, this will be decided in court, not just Congress. Wednesday, October 16th, is the deadline for military paychecks. If funding isn't restored by then, service members go without pay. That's a political crisis for both parties, but especially for Republicans who campaign on supporting the troops. Watch whether that pressure breaks the logjam. Also watch which agencies start visibly failing, when food recalls slow down, when passport processing stops, when disaster relief stalls. Those are the moments the public feels a shutdown most acutely. The Trump administration clearly believes it can blame Democrats and pressure them into surrendering on health care. Democrats believe the public will blame Republicans for chaos and cruelty. Someone's reading the room wrong. Here's what you can do. Track which services you rely on and notice when they degrade. Ask your senators, both parties, why they're letting this continue. If you're a federal worker or no one, document what's happening. Your story matters. And if you care about whether government functions, pay attention to who's negotiating in good faith and who's using workers as pawns. This isn't about partisan loyalty. It's about whether we want a country where public services work and workers are treated with dignity. The evidence from this shutdown suggests one party is more committed to those principles than the other. The open loop from the beginning. Why does firing thousands of workers during a shutdown matter for every service you rely on? Because those workers are the ones who make those services possible. Without them, the government isn't just closed. It's broken. And breaking government to win a political fight isn't governance. It's sabotage. If this breakdown helped you understand what's really happening, subscribe for more clear, fact-first analysis of the policies that shape your life.
If you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos.